Well, she's just been an amazing force, and we are so glad that she helps us every year to populate and recruit people to be part of our Gen Z and Young Millennial training programs. Welcome, Dr. Russi. This is your first maiden appearance on Igniting Change, and we are so glad that you're with us. Now, I have a question for you, given your unique experience. We have been looking at all the research on HBCUs, and there are many unique aspects of HBCUs. What would you say to all our listeners, because people are listening, they're trying to figure this out. What are some of the top strengths that you see when you work with HBCUs? What are their top strengths?
Okay. Thank you all again for having me. One of the top strengths of the HBCUs is it's relevant, real, as well as relatable to our cultural needs and our comprehensive needs. Moreover, it is the best bang for your buck. When you're looking at an economic stand, it addresses comprehensive as well as the holistic needs of low-income, first-generation students, specifically for the African-American and diverse populations and so forth. I honestly can say I would recommend an HBCU to any individual, African-American, minority, as well as white individuals, in order to get that small one-on-one feel, and you can go to a place where you are somebody, where you are valued as well as validated and supported.
My. Go ahead.
You missed one part, Dr. Russi. And I went to an HBCU as well, and everything that you said is 100% correct. The only thing that I would add, the one thing you can get at an HBCU that you don't get at a PWI or any other institution is that HBCU homecoming. My goodness.
Oh, my goodness. Why did I know he was going to go there? At least he didn't go to the Francis sororities. I knew he would go at that level.
You got to double on this call as well. But come on, Doctor, tell me that I'm wrong. You
are correct. You are correct. And that speaks to the culture. The culture. And one of the reasons why I even selected Jackson State, it selected me as well, is because of the culture. And let me share the backstory. I don't play an instrument. I don't play in a band. Actually, I play the first violin. But when I saw the sonic boom of the South on that Motown in the early 90s, and I said, I'm going to that school, even though Jackson State was not at the top of my list. It was Clark Atlanta and Tennessee State, then Jackson State. But when I saw the book, there was no question in my mind. That's where I knew that I would have to go. And the legendary Dr. Greg Carr always mentions movement and memory. That goes with our cultural vibrations and how we move and navigate throughout this world. That's part of the homecoming experience. That's why, again, I said, I'm going to that school.
Oh, beautiful. Now, there's been some real changes at HBCUs in these last couple of years. We know that HBCUs, graduate most of, over 25% of all Black graduates in the country. We know that HBCUs have so many other unique accomplishments that they do. And when we don't have a strong presence of HBCUs, we suffer as a people. We have less Black doctors today than we did in the past because of the lack of the Black medical schools. There haven't been, new ones instituted over a number of years. So we know it's very important. But one thing we've seen since that horrific, terrible affirmative action, adverse, ugly, vicious affirmative action decision by the Supreme Court in 2023, we've seen a tremendous uptick in applications to HBCUs. And we've seen a decrease in the enrollment of African Americans in PWIs. I went to PWI I never, because I was California based. There ain't none. That's the best way to put it. And ain't is the word. But I must say that it is so important that we've seen this uptick of applications. How to all of you, starting with you, Savion, how has that affected your school as people are now clamoring and fighting to get in, and we're seeing like the largest classes ever at Jackson State University and so many others? How does that affect you, Savion? Have you seen any impact of it?
Yes, I would say absolutely. I've seen the impact of it just to see how our campuses are filling up. It's two perspectives I want to speak on. First, it's amazing to see how many people want to be a part of the culture that HBCUs bring, and understanding the value and being able to learn the history that HBCUs provide. But on the flip side of it, I think it's a lot of students around the country is realizing that America has a lot of things planned for them that's not in their favor, so they want to be in spaces where they're prioritized. I think something that was so amazing that's happening at Kentucky State is not only students are picking to come to Kentucky State because it's an HBCU, but because it is at our state capital in Frankfort. So many students have had the opportunity to internship and be able to be in our state capital and advocate not only for HBCUs, but for African Americans all over who are being mistreated in Kentucky. And I feel like Kentucky is getting a wave of revolutionary leaders who are not afraid to step in our Capitol building and tell those legislators that are making policy and are speaking out about Kentucky State and how it's not producing in the environment. But when we take a look at history, we see that Kentucky State has produced many things for the state of Kentucky and just for the world. And just even speaking on that, Kentucky State has produced a senator that is still sitting in his chair and he is a graduate from Kentucky State, and he is the first black man to be a U.S. state senator. So when we talk about the importance of HBCUs and this wave of students that's coming here, I feel like students are having a great opportunity to see and also understand the history and the impact that they can have at a HBCU, and also creating tomorrow change makers as we move a lot of Kentucky State students into the Capitol building to intern to show how important we are.
Wow, love it.
Yeah, that's incredible. And, Trinity, one of the interesting things that I find is that, I went to predominantly white schools from first grade to 12th grade, and I was always one of maybe two black children in my classroom. And then when I went to my HBCU, of course, it was completely, everything about my school was black. And it was really interesting because I didn't really know what to expect from an HBCU, because I just figured there'd be a couple more black students in my class, and, it's no big deal. My mom was a big pusher for me to go to an HBCU because she went to a PWI. But, one of the things that, and this is what I wanted to bring to you, Trinity, one of the things that I have found from the HBCU experience is that there's something about the level of comfort in the classroom with the other black students that are there that allows you the freedom to just your mind to just learn and to absorb, to ask the questions, the study groups, all of that stuff seems to me to be much more comforting in that HBCU experience. I also went to a PWI for a university, but I had that foundational experience from that HBCU, that comfort of learning and being willing to open myself to being right or being wrong. Did you have that similar type of experience at Hampton or Fisk, Trinity?
Yes, I feel like I had those experiences at both institutions, especially being an undergrad at Hampton during the time of the COVID pandemic, but then also the social justice summer of 2020 and the continued effects from that, just being able to share thoughts, being able to speak on different issues that if I wasn't at an HBCU, if I wasn't at an HBCU, I might have shied away from, or different events or different activities that I was able to put on as the director of political engagement that if I were at another institution, could have been an issue, could have been, no, you can't do, voter information. No, you can't have a call with when we all vote. No, you can't do, voter registration calls or any of those type of things, which is how I ended up getting involved with the Center for Common Ground. So a lot of the things that I was able to participate in and conversations that I was able to have, and even some of them spearhead, have really been so influential in creating my journey to the point where I couldn't imagine if I wasn't in that environment where I would be today. So it's definitely been such an opportunity that I'm grateful for every day, and still to the point now that I'm getting my MBA at Hampton. So super grateful for the HBCU experience.
Wow. And Dr. Atwater, oh my goodness, this show is just blowing my mind. It's so amazing. Dr. Atwater, for you, teaching, when people are, passing all these evil anti-DEI measures around the country, when they're banning Black books, oh my God, when they're out there banning, the teaching of African-American history, when we're looking at Tulsa, right? You saw, everyone, that the Department of Justice just came out with a report, finally, detailing the evils of the work that was done by the police department during the Tulsa massacre, something that a lot of us have always, harped on and been told, to shut up. But I'm just so happy that they actually released the report. I wish they had released it years ago to do some follow-up, but still it's out there. So our history is so important, but also like you're teaching the radical Black tradition. That's important because that gets lost. Tell us what it has been like to teach, and especially as you've seen this new influx of students coming in post this evil decision of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I love to. Before I get there, I did want to just make a quick comment on the what Xavier does, particularly to your comment about medical students. Xavier is known for producing the most African American medical school graduates in the United States, and we just are opening up now a Ochsner College of Medicine. So we will have a medical school at Xavier in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and Louisiana. So for those aspiring to be medical students, come on down, take a Black Studies course, and then go into your medical school. But no, wonderful. Yeah, and to the point that you're making, I mean, from banned books to the attack on DEI or just Black Studies in general, this is something that's happened since the fight for Black Studies. So what we're able to do, or what we do in my classes, is we find out ways in which we can use our history to inform our activism today. So many of my students have gone and, okay, we have a book ban. Well, that doesn't stop us as students at this university to go to a local community center, go to a local school, and read these banned books, right? It may be banned in that school, but it's not banned to us, right? So we're finding ways to utilize our creativity, utilize our education for the benefit of our community. So as we attack these things, or as we or continue to go under attack, we're creating new offenses every single day. Even students who are not African American that come into my classroom, many of them are finding ways to utilize what we learn in their class to educate their own communities, as well as assist and be allies to the fight for African American liberation. Right. So we attack at this university in particular, and I know HBCUs in general. How are we going to make a society more just and humane? That is the focus. From what we do in our classrooms, from what we do in the office, even how we treat our students. I had to call a couple of students this week because I'm like, hey, you ain't do good lesson. What we got to do to get you back on track, right? HBCUs gives you a love. You are a student. You are kids, and we treat you as such.
Awesome. And
Barbara, I just love the conversations that we have about HBCUs because, Barbara, when we started this radio show, we started out by talking about the 68888, right? And, Major Charity Adams, who is the person that led that 68888, I mean, she did that thing, right? She's a graduate of what? Of Wilberforce University. Come on now. HBCU pride, that's what I'm talking about.
And she's a Delta.
All right, people.
I knew you had to throw that in there, Doc.
All right, and happy Founders Day yesterday to all the Deltas around the country. All right now. The other thing I wanted to, Dr. Russi, you know, I was on a radio show yesterday with, a podcast with Reverend Jesse Jackson Jr., and we were talking about many things. And one question he